This episode of The Charity Show is brought to you by The Good Studio, creating great content for good causes. Hello and welcome to The Charity Show, the podcast made by charity people for charity people. Every episode we bring you the people, ideas and stories shaping the charity sector right now.
Whether you're leading an organisation, running campaigns, raising funds, managing volunteers, or simply passionate about making a difference, this is the place for insight, inspiration, and a few honest conversations along the way.
And today we're talking about helicopters, critical care, fundraising, leadership, and one of the most recognisable charity brands in the UK.
Because while air ambulances are among the most trusted charities in the country, many people still don't realise how they're funded, what it costs to keep them flying, or the scale of engagement needed to make it all happen.
Our guest is Keith Wilson, Director of Income and Engagement at Hampshire and Isle of Wight Air Ambulance. He's spent more than 2 decades in charity leadership and has overseen a remarkable period of growth for the organisation,
including a major transformation in the way the charity approaches fundraising and supporter engagement, and one of the most ambitious infrastructure projects in its history.
So, if you've ever wondered what it takes to fund a life-saving emergency service entirely through charitable support, then stay with us. And if you're joining us for the first time, don't forget to hit follow on your favourite podcast platform. Right then, here's what's coming up.
Welcome back to The Charity Show. I'm Piers Townley.
And I'm Tim Bainan.
Well, Tim, we're recording this during Volunteers Week, so it feels a good moment to say thank you to the millions of people across the country who quietly keep charities, community groups and all the events running.
Absolutely. It's such an important week for the sector, isn't it, Piers? It's a big one. What's it like at the brain tumour charity? I imagine you guys are thanking your volunteers left, right and centre.
Yeah, we have an army that we mobilise for the big mass participation events. We have loads of volunteers that work at our family days, and we have some that come into the office as well, including Vera, who we're championing on our website this week. She's been with us now for, I think, nearly 18 years since her association with the charity. You know, quietly going about, doing loads of admin, loads of stuff around the office, supporting all of those office staff and the wider volunteers as well. So yeah, they're the backbone, aren't they, of any organisation? They just really are.
Absolutely. Good on Vera. That's amazing. 18 years coming into the office, helping you guys out. She's part of the furniture. One of those things that, one of those people who's kind of always there for you. And she's a volunteer. That's amazing. Good on her. Brilliant stuff.
Yeah, she is fantastic. Always saying hello. Always there.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's organisations big and small, isn't it, who rely so much on volunteers. Obviously, I am part of a running club here in Fleet, our local town, entirely run by volunteers, put on these fantastic running events, half marathon, 10K, couldn't happen without the volunteers, and then all the marshals that support those events as well. So all those kind of community events that happen across the country every weekend and every day, entirely run by volunteers. So absolutely, this week's so important.
It is important. You're right. And it's not just standing on the side of the marathon waving a branded banner. It's photographers, it's copywriters, it's all those other people, the designers out there, as well as the fundraisers and the support staff that we use for our events. It's a whole variety of different roles that we use and rely on, and are just so hugely grateful for.
Yeah, absolutely. What else has been going on in your world recently? It's been a little while since we've caught up. What's been going on with you?
It's just the time is zooming away, isn't it? We've both been discussing this off air. We're heavy in exam season, and across the country now there are parents tearing their hair out. There are kids tearing their hair out as they're thrust in front of 2-3 hour exams here and there. So that's dominated most things.
Yeah. Well, at least the weather's turned now. Again, can't have a conversation without talking about the weather. But last week was 30-degree heat. in the half term. At least the kids now sitting those exams, if they are at the moment. It's not, they haven't got to worry about the nice weather outside. The weather's turned. So this is good. For me, if I was doing a sitting exam now, I'd want it to be pouring of rain outside, because I wouldn't want to feel like I'm missing out on the sunshine. So yeah. That's something.
That's spot on, Tim. But actually, also leading on from our last guest, which was Alex Day from The Big Give, over at the Brain Tumour Charity, we're knee deep in getting ready to launch our summer appeal, which I think happens next week at this time of recording. So when this episode goes out, it will be this week, is our Big Give campaign. So we have a huge target there, fundraising target there, but we've utilised some of our supporters for a patient-led story. We've got some of our high-profile supporters, like the comedian Hal Crittenden and Nikki Chapman, the broadcaster, and the actress Amy Nuttall, all lending video support. So they're galvanising a lot of people and using the Big Give model of match funding, which is a huge thing for all the charities taking part, this time of year. There's also a winter version that we're taking part in later on the year, but I do remember talking to Alex and saying that this is our next big push. So head back to the last episode to catch up on what match funding means for the Big Give, but that's what's been dominating staff here at the charity.
Fantastic. Love to hear from other people listening in who are optimising their match funding potential and who paid attention to that last episode, exactly, Piers, as you were saying, because there's such huge potential there for people to double their money essentially by free match funding. Yeah, fantastic stuff. Right then, I think it's about time we cracked on with today's interview. Shall we do it? When most of us think of an air ambulance, we picture the helicopter arriving at the scene of a serious accident.
But what we don't see is everything happening behind the scenes. All the doctors, the paramedics, dispatchers, fundraisers, volunteers, marketeers and supporters that make that response possible.
Our guest today sits right at the heart of that operation. Keith Wilson is Director of Income and Engagement at Hampshire and Isle of Wight Air Ambulance, where he leads both fundraising and engagement functions.
He's also helped steer the charity through a significant period of growth and change, including a major rethink of how income teams work together and the development of a brand new operational base near Southampton Airport.
Absolutely, he gave us a little tour of that base, didn't he? In part one, we talk about Keith's journey into the sector, how air ambulances fit into the wider emergency services landscape, and why bringing fundraising and engagement together can create something greater than the sum of its parts.
Here's part one. Hi Keith, thanks for coming on the show. It's a real pleasure to have you on, especially with surrounding all the news that we'll get into about the new airbase. But just to start with, what's your story? How did you end up with the air ambulance charity, and what was your path into this in the third sector?
Well, gosh, I sort of ended up here by accident. I'm sure many charity professionals have had a similar sort of route into the sector. I used to work in a theatre, and there was one night a ghost hunting organisation had said they wanted to come and do a ghost hunt in this very haunted theatre in Winchester. And I said, "Oh, this is great. This is very newsworthy as well. I'll tell the marketing team all about it." And the marketing team were very clear with me that they promoted shows, and anything this lowbrow I could do myself. So I should go and write a press release. And so I wrote this sort of 9-page press release and sent it out to the media. And lo and behold, they all picked it up and they all came along on the night. And I didn't really know what to do with them. So I just got a load of wine out, and they stayed up until about sort of 4:30 or 5 in the morning, making ghost noises and annoying the poor ghost hunters, and then published their stories the next day. And I thought, wow, I can actually do PR. This is quite fun. And so from there, I sort of took a bit of a career trajectory change. My local children's hospice was recruiting for a PR officer, and I did that and never looked back. Really, it was an interesting time to join. Sort of, social media was exploding at that time, and if you got in early and did that well, there were huge gains to be found. And so I did that and stayed there for 10 years, leaving as head of marketing 5 years ago to come here as director of marketing and communications, but have since taken on a comms and engagement role.
That sounds an amazing backstory there, Keith. I love that. What attracted you to the actual air ambulances? Was there any specific reason for that?
I mean, with air ambulances, you always see them. They're very visible and a little bit noisy as well. So they're out there doing good work. It's something you can get behind. And I just thought it was something I could add here. A few of the people I'd worked with previously had moved over to this organisation and were having a really good experience here. They got in touch with me when there was a vacancy, and I thought, well, 10 years at one organisation, maybe it's time to test myself a little bit in a completely different environment. And so really keen to come here, and immediately you can see the impact you can make in someone's life, saving someone's life, and what that means for their family, their friends, their co-workers, and bystanders who might be with them in that dark moment.
That's really interesting, that point you said as well, Keith, is one of what we would like to touch on, is that everyone sees the helicopters, and on the news that you'll see in the background, the air ambulances quite often, but not a lot of people, when you speak to them, actually know how they work, or how they work as a charity, or how they integrate into, the other emergency services. Could you just briefly outline how both those things kind of work?
Yeah, I mean, you're dead right. There are so many misconceptions about air ambulances. So every air ambulance in the country is slightly different, and they all think they've got it right. But actually we have. No, they all work slightly differently because of different circumstances, different geography, different patient demographics, all sorts of reasons, and just history, So the way we're set up, we are effectively a commissioner. So we pay University Hospital Southampton, our local major trauma centre, to provide us with the senior consultants in emergency medicine or anaesthetics who go on to become pre-hospital specialists, and the paramedics and other clinical team members that we require. And they provide them to us. We provide them back with a helicopter, which we lease through an aviation provider. Part of that lease, they provide the pilots, the engineers, the spare parts, and everything else. So that's our organisation. We're sort of three component parts that work seamlessly together. So there's the clinical team from the University Hospital Southampton, there's the aviation side of things from Babcock, and then there's the charity side, who sort of take a lead role in pulling these things together, raising the money to make it happen, and directing to some extent what that service looks like in the future. But if you look at another air ambulance, they might be fully integrated with their ambulance service. They might be completely independent. They might own their own aircraft. They might recruit their own clinical team, etc., etc. And some of them might have clinical team provided to them from the ambulance service on a sort of secondee program. So all very different. One thing we have in common is that where we were 15, 20, 25 years ago in some cases, where we would get to a patient, pick them up and take them to hospital, is no longer the case. What we all do now is we get to a patient and we save their life there and then, whether that's open heart surgery by the side of the road, putting someone in an induced coma, blood transfusions, amputations, things that you wouldn't think possible on a cold, dark, wet night by the side of the road somewhere, is what our crews do, and that's what saves a patient's life, not speed of getting them to a hospital.
So it's literally at that point of that incident then, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that call, I mean, I'm going to be really naive, that call is made by whichever the first responder is generally.
As to whether we go, or we make the call. So we actually we have a partnership with South Central Ambulance Service. Again, other air ambulances will have different arrangements, but we have a desk in the 999 call centre, and in there we'll have a senior paramedic and a dispatcher, and they'll be watching all the jobs come in. So thousands of jobs every day, colour coded by severity and incident type, and they'll be looking through that pile of needles for a needle that means we should go because we can add value and potentially save that patient's life. So anything like a head-on collision with two cars, motorbikes, horses, cardiac, etc., pediatrics, they're looking for those things in particular and anything else around it. They might take over that phone call from the call handler, start interrogating bystanders or family members or the patient themselves even further, and then we decide whether we dispatch and in what asset we dispatch, because we could take a car over a helicopter if it's going to be more expedient to do so.
I'm a bit of a helicopter nut, Keith. I could talk about the specifics of this all day. I just think helicopters are incredible. But I mean, a vast area then as well, Isle of Wight and Hampshire, geographically.
Yeah, a big area, really diverse in terms of sort of the makeup of the area we cover. So, of course, we've got major cities. Portsmouth, one of the most densely packed cities you can find, so very difficult to find landing sites. Southampton, similarly. And then, of course, you've got these vast rural areas as well where we cover, where we might be dealing with farming incidents, equestrian, sports. And the thing that makes us most unique, of course, is the island. So while other air ambulances might be able to use their cars more because it's more cost effective, we are wedded to using our helicopter pretty much throughout all of our operating hours, because we need to be able to get to that island, treat patients, and bring them back to the major trauma centre if required.
It's amazing stuff, Keith. And I think I know a little bit about the blue light sector. I spent 10 years working for firefighters charities, so I know a little bit about the world that you inhabit. But the thing that makes ambulance so unique, obviously, is you don't see sprained ankles and small incidents. Every call is a big major incident. It's not something that you don't really know what you're going to get to until you get there, I imagine. And whatever you're going to get to, it's not going to be an easy job.
Yeah, the jobs we attend, it's people having the worst days of their life, normally hovering somewhere between life and death. We'll maybe turn up at the odd sprained ankle if it's remote and there's a cause for us to do so, but generally it tends to be very severe illnesses or injuries requiring advanced critical care. And we're the only providers of critical care in Hampshire or the Isle of Wight. In Hampshire, the Isle of Wight have a wonderful paramedic-led critical care program that we are pleased to support.
So your role as Director of Income Engagement, I'm assuming that the fundraising and marketing comms teams all sit under your jurisdiction, your remit. What are the challenges of leading a diverse directorate? Because some of the charity sector roles don't often combine two different areas of a charity.
Yeah, so I mean, as I say, when I joined Hampshire and Isle of Wight Air Ambulance, I joined as Director of Communications, and I was a Director of Fundraising, working here at the same time. She'd done a fab job, and I must say I stand on the shoulder of giants, but she moved over to our clinical side to become a care group manager supporting our clinicians. And so that gave our new chief exec a chance to rethink how the structure might look. So I'm very much from a marketing and PR and communications background, but had sat within a fundraising team for the last 10 years. So could make a case that I might understand a little bit about fundraising. But we elected to take a slightly different approach to fundraising. In fact, we don't use the word fundraising here. We're an engagement team. We do not have income targets. We don't particularly ask for money as much as we can help it. Rather, we see our mission as a team as getting out there, telling the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Air Ambulance story, creating an emotional bond with people, and bringing them on a lifetime journey with us. And so that, to me, is as much a marketing and comms function as it is engagement, income generation, fundraising, whatever you want to call it. But what we do is we do really good fundraising. We just don't call it fundraising, and we do it in a really low pressure, supportive and nurturing environment for the team here.
That seems when you explain like that, it's a really logical way forward, and it obviously seems to be working for you. Is there, when you talk about bringing your supporters and your benefactors and your donors on a journey with you, is there a specific story recently? Is there a specific part of a campaign recently that sticks in your mind that illustrates what you do as a charity?
I think there's a really nice example of how the whole team were able to come together to push one of our particular aims. So when we launched our Operation Airbase appeal with the goal of building a new centrally located airbase, we knew we needed to really make some noise. And so the way we're structured with no income targets meant that the whole team can get involved in that. And it's not taking up time where they might be raising money or doing something else. And so we all went out with a number of patients as well, and did some guerrilla marketing by projecting sort of 40, 50-foot videos on enormous historic sites across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, and then produced a video as a result. The video featured a number of our patients who have since sort of come and engaged with the charity, come with us to various award ceremonies, and that video has just won the Smiley Charity Film Awards as well. And so by taking all that pressure out, we're all able to work together towards the same aim, even if it's a bit silly, as it was on this occasion, and bring our patients with us as well, because they don't need the added pressure of feeling like we're using them to bring in money. Really, we're celebrating them and telling their story in innovative ways.
That's really interesting, isn't it, as well? Because myself and Tim previously and currently work in comms teams, and trying to balance that sort of transactional relationship when you're doing a story or a campaign or you're doing a bit of marketing is quite tricky, isn't it? Getting the balance right, I think, is key to making something resonate as being honest and having the integrity of an organisation. And the Operation Airbase, I've just been reading through it on the news at the moment, and the film with the Smiley Film Awards coming. Huge congratulations for that. We were lucky enough to have Simon on from the Smiley Film Awards in a previous episode. I just love them. Just fantastic, an award ceremony. Just go slightly off the tack, what are the common misconceptions people have, do you think, about the air ambulance services? And how do you go about dispelling those kind of myths that sometimes you may crop up in the media or crop up in conversations with donors?
Yeah, I mean, the first one is that we are what we were 20 years ago, that will pick up a patient and take them to hospital. And so that is the answer to that is to keep pumping out those patient stories as best you can, that tell the true picture of what our service looks like and what it means to be treated by Hampshire and Isle of Wight Air Ambulance. And the other big one, and we haven't found the solution to this, is that we are in some way publicly funded, part of the National Health Service. There's money coming from somewhere, whereas pretty much every air ambulance in the UK is 100% charitably funded, except for some of the devolved nations who get a bit of funding. So for every penny we spend, we have to raise through our engagement team in one way or another. And that's a huge challenge, but also it's a challenge to get that message out there in front of people and help them see that we are all charity all the time.
Really interesting what you're saying, Keith, about those engagement challenges. And as you say, what makes the air ambulance unique is the fact that you are charitably funded and not supported by central government in any way, which is really, really fascinating. And it makes your job in terms of engagement that much more significant, really. Now, tell me, in terms of engagement, how difficult is it, or how do you approach the challenge of sustaining a level of engagement and awareness across a whole year? Or do you find that there are peaks and troughs in an average year? What does it look like?
Yeah, there's definitely peaks and troughs. So one of the things that really surprised me when I entered the air ambulance sector, or certainly Hampshire and Isle of Wight Air Ambulance, was that Christmas was really quiet, really quiet. Coming from a children's hospice, when Christmas breaks over you like an enormous tidal wave, I found it really strange. And then we came round to the summer season, and we were just so busy. So trying to find some activity that we can do outside of peak summer, trying to create a bit of shape to the year, I think, has been really beneficial. One of the things we've done really well in terms of giving us engagement opportunities right the way through the year is first and foremost creating our sim van. So we had a slightly underutilized transit style van sitting out the front of our charity office for way too long. And I had a mad scientist moment where I thought, well, why don't we turn that into a portable flight simulator that we can just drive around to corporates and things like that. And in my head, I had this fairly simple idea of just a computer and maybe a joystick, and I didn't keep things simple. So we ended up with this all singing, all dancing, full avionics package. The controls and the displays and everything in the back of this van, wow, which extends out by 6 foot when you pull the rear of the van. It identically matched those of our aircraft. We use Flight Simulator to power everything, and it takes off from our helipad using our exact helicopter with all of the sort of accurate modelling and everything else that you could possibly wish for. As you fly out of our airbase, you fly over our cruise cars and our response cars and everything. So it's a fantastic asset. That
I can see Piers here, by the way, who's a wannabe pilot. I can see Piers going, oh yeah, this is exactly your cup of tea. You're going to be heading to down to check this out. I can see this.
I bet it is
great fun. But that for us just opened so many doors with so outside of the summer season with corporates who would just love for us to bring it along to their events, their Founders Day, all that sort of stuff. And then, in summer, the events that we were going to, where we were paying for a stall and paying for an electric hookup and things, suddenly those people are begging us to come for free. And the types of event that were inviting us along, changed from maybe a county show, which we love doing county shows, they're brilliant. But instead, we would be given a priority pitch at Carfest or something like that.
Wow. What an asset.
So that really transformed things for us. And then we've taken that same approach when building the new airbase that I'm now currently in and created a visitor centre. So visitors from our community can come in, they can see our helicopter, they can see our crew in action, they can look down on the hangar and on the pad from the room above. And then in the visitor centre, we can do CPR training, we can do school visits and an education program. And so, again, we're able to engage with our community all the way through the year and give them a really good, really memorable and immersive experience. And that's the key thing for us.
Right, time for a bit of charity news, Piers. So let's dive in to see what we've uncovered this week. And for me, we've already touched on it at the top of the show. Obviously, it's Volunteers Week, 1st to the 7th of June, or last week, if you're listening to this, at the time it goes out, was Volunteers Week. And just reading from their website, a lot of stuff going on. Obviously, huge week for charities across the country, and every single charity, I'm assuming and hoping, are taking the time to thank their volunteers and to do something special for their volunteers at this time of the year. So really, really important week. But yeah, it took place on the 1st to the 7th of June, led by the UK Volunteering Forum. Volunteers Week is an annual opportunity to thank the millions of people across the UK who give their time, passion and skills to support others. And as they say on their website, throughout the week, hundreds of events will take place or have taken place, both online and in person, from award ceremonies and celebration events to coffee mornings, open days and volunteer recruitment drives, bringing people together to recognise and appreciate volunteers in every corner of the country. I've got a great quote here as well, which they put on their website again from Hilary McGrady, Director General at the National Trust, who are supporting this year's Volunteers Week. And she said, "I'm absolutely delighted that we are supporting this year's Volunteers Week. We have over 44,000 volunteers in the Trust." That's a hell of a figure, 44,000 volunteers. And they do such amazing work for us. We could not do our job without them. I think that's a line we hear so often in this sector. Volunteers Week, she goes on to say, gives an opportunity to shine a light on the incredible contribution volunteers make. I also know just how much volunteering means to them and how much they get in return. New friendships, a sense of community and a genuine sense of giving something back. And I think that's such a vital part of Volunteers Week, isn't it, Piers? In terms of not only charities thanking volunteers, but volunteers also recognising, and the wider society, wider sector recognising actually the value of volunteering for the volunteers. It is something, is that ultimate feel-good factor. I've done volunteering myself, volunteer for the running club, as I already mentioned at the start of the show. It does make you feel good, and it's something I think that's such an important part of volunteering.
Very much so. And we're not, and as you mentioned, Tim, we're not talking about a handful of volunteers at a charity event. That's 44,000 for the National Trust. That's the size of a small town. It's amazing.
Yeah, amazing. Anyway, what have you spotted in the news this week?
So on to a game of two halves, Tim, for me. Obviously, my chosen favourite subject here. I'm very, very well versed in everything to do with football means, as you well know. But an amazing event that does galvanise so many people. It's the 20th anniversary match of Soccer Aid for UNICEF, and it's achieved a record-breaking fundraising total of 16,462,000 and some small change to support UNICEF's work for children globally. The match is broadcast live from a sold-out London stadium on Sunday the 31st of May. Has now raised over 137 million since it was co-founded by UNICEF's UK ambassador Robbie Williams back in 2006. And the match this time saw England reclaim the title with a 3-2 victory over the Soccer Aid World 11 FC. The evening was hosted by Dermot O'Leary and Alex Scott MBE, and it brought together a huge amount of famous football names and celebrities from the world of sport and entertainment for what is billed as the world's biggest celebrity football match. A major contributor to the record total was singer Ollie Murs, whose Into the Unknown challenge raised over 1.3 million. The grueling challenge saw Murs run, ride and row, a bit of alliteration for us there, 400 kilometres from Old Trafford to London Stadium. And further cementing the night's success was the support of the Children's Investment Fund Foundation, CIFF, which doubled every public donation up to 6 million. A bit more match funding there, as we've talked about at the top of the show. This match funding is directed towards the Child Nutrition Fund, helping UNICEF address severe forms of malnutrition and anemia in children globally. So a fantastic event that I know about, but I don't know the offside rule yet. I still probably never will.
Oh, Piers, shocking. World Cup's just coming up. You've got to gen up.
Shocking. It's terrible.
Got to. Big excitement in our house for the World Cup. We watched the Soccer Aid match as well. It's not great football, I must admit. You know, it's there was one stage when one of the celebrities kicked the ball, then turned to the crowd and started waving and didn't notice the ball come back to her. It was hilarious. But yeah,
that's my kind of football, Tim.
It wasn't the highest standard of football, but it was still an entertaining watch and an incredible sum of money.
It's huge amounts of awareness, isn't it? It's a brand now that everyone knows in the third sector and way and beyond, and huge sums of money. So fantastic event.
Welcome back to our conversation with Keith Wilson from Hampshire and Isle of Wight Air Ambulance.
In part one, we heard about Keith's route into the sector, how the air ambulance service operates alongside other emergency services and the challenges of leading both income generation and engagement under one directorate.
We also explored the charity's ambitious new airbase project and how supporter engagement plays such a critical role in making life-saving care possible.
In part two, we turn to fundraising, volunteers, leadership and the future. We asked Keith what fundraising works best for an air ambulance charity, or what he's learned from leading teams through change, and how he sees the next 5 years unfolding for the charity sector.
So let's get back to the conversation. We'll come on to fundraising in a second, so I'm really keen to find out how you convert that engagement to money at the end of the day, and we'll come on to that in a second. But first of all, give me an idea of the scale of the challenge here. What does it cost to keep the ambulances in the air every day?
Yeah, well, we need to raise something in the region of 12 million a year. In the last year just gone, we needed to add an extra sort of 2 or 3 million to that to top up our appeal income. So just on the clinical side, clinical and aviation side, that accounts to £17,000 each day. A little bit more than that, in fact.
Wow.
Which is a terrifying amount, really, to be honest. And I always say we're an expensive service, and we shouldn't shy away from that. But what price is coming home alive to your family? And so, so that's the cost of providing the service that we do. And so much of that is fueled by regular gifts. So more than half of our income comes from regular givers, tens of thousands of them giving up to £10 a month on a monthly basis. And so while we have an enormous amount to raise, we don't start every financial year with a completely blank sheet of paper. So we've got these people who we know aren't just going to disappear. You know, some people will leave a scheme, some people will come in. That gives us a really good grounding, a really good foundation on which to build our service and to plan for the future.
It's that guaranteed income. Is it allows you that ability to plan ahead because you know it's coming in every month.
Yeah, well, at least you hope most of it will come in that month, unless you get something terribly wrong. So, but our supporters, they're brilliant. I mean, there are so many of them that have stayed with us for 5, 10, 15 years. You know, and that was previously on a lottery scheme, which we're winding down now on our regular giving program. But even those who played on our lottery never saw it as a chance to win a few quid. It was a way of supporting our ambulance and almost an insurance package for them, knowing that we would be there and available if they should need us.
That's a really powerful legacy concept, legacy story to have to tell people as well, isn't it, Keith, I suppose? And then just briefly, how does those sort of legacies and those longer term prospects compare with the event kind of fundraising and the event kind of challenges, that marrying up the two and making sure that they're both working in unison? What's the difficulty there?
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at events, and mass participation events in particular, is that they can be a loss leader. They can be a really good engagement tool, a celebration of our service. And if we make them really high quality, really busy, really fun and impactful, then that's a win. And I don't stress too much about the income that comes back from our events, as long as they're washing their face. But what we have to do, right, is with events, with community fundraising, with corporate fundraising, is ensure we always take an opportunity to bring someone closer to the organisation. So whether that's bringing them in for CPR training, giving them an opportunity to meet our crew, giving them an opportunity to come and see the airbase, or meet the pilots, or see the aircraft, that sort of thing. And very gradually, we bring these people in as friends and members of our team, and the offer of becoming a regular donor is always there in the ether. It isn't something we necessarily push very hard. We do have canvassers out there in the community doing door-to-door and private site, and they do a fantastic job for us. But we're also seeing our own in-house efforts, these sort of gentle, journey-based efforts, growing in success as well.
It's that golden grail, isn't it, between comms and the events and fundraising teams across the sector, the magic C word, the conversion, isn't it? And everyone's, it's just how to master and how to tweak conversion in an organisation to maximise it.
That's it. But it really helps when you haven't got your own income target. So one of the big things we push here is referrals. So if you're working with someone, and actually there's someone who would do a better job of working with them in a different team, so like our development team, major gifts, legacy, individual giving, etc., then we will pass that person around and make sure they're working with the best, almost account manager here that they can be. And because you're not losing any income by passing that person over, you're actually going to be rewarded at your performance review for having done so, rather than someone questioning where all your income's gone. Then people are very happy, willing and keen to do it. And that's to the benefit of the whole organisation.
Can I just ask about legacy income, Keith, as well? Because we see a lot of charities, we talked to a lot of charities on this show who seem to be putting more weight into their legacy fundraising. Is that something that is important to you? And where do those legacies come from? I'm assuming that, those people whose lives you save hopefully end up wanting to support you through a gift in their will as well.
Yeah, definitely. So legacy is extremely important to us. It's growing rapidly as well. But of course, with legacy, it always remains slightly unpredictable. We're putting an awful lot of effort into legacy marketing, but also legacy forecasting and understanding what our future looks like with legacy, at least as far into the future as we can do, which gives our trustees greater confidence in planning the next year and the year ahead. So certainly ex-patients often come forward as legacy givers, but also like our volunteer pool. So many of them go on to leave us a gift, and we're seeing increasing numbers of pledges from things like Farewell and other packages like that. So yeah, we're hopeful that it will continue to grow. We had a bumper year last year, which I think will probably mean we have a slightly slower year this year. And of course, we have to be mindful as a team here that we can't always be growing year after year, but look at it over a sort of 5 or 10 year period and ensure we're doing the right things when you look at it on a longer term basis.
Over my 10 years in Firefighters Charity, it always amazed me how one legacy gift in a year can make all the difference. It can be totally unexpected, and it just comes in, and it's it's £1 million gift or whatever, and it just blows everything out of the water. It's amazing how one gift can make such a huge difference.
Absolutely. It's incredible, isn't it? What a wonderful legacy to leave, that you're going to be saving lives long into the future. I guess the risk is, of course, that you get that £1 million legacy, or 2 or 5 or whatever it might be, and you look at it and think, well, this is our future now. We're going to get these every year, and suddenly you plan and structure your service in a slightly over ambitious way, perhaps. So we're always mindful of that.
Yeah, they're almost like unicorn moments, aren't they? When they come around, they're incredible, amazing things, but you can't base and you can't project and you can't build anything on it. Keith, you briefly talked about volunteers there and legacies. We're recording this. It's obviously Volunteers Week. When we go out, it'll just finished stuff. What role and how important are volunteers? I mean, we know that they are important. How does the volunteer work for the ambulance look like?
Yeah, so we've got a couple of hundred volunteers, and we measure active volunteers. So volunteers working for our service have to do a certain amount of sessions each year to stay on the books, just for reasons of efficiency and also training and standards and things. So lots of volunteers, lots of active volunteers. And my favourite stat with our volunteer program is that of all of the events, the corporate events, the communities, the fairs, and everything else that we go to, the school talks, 80% of them are 100% volunteer-led and covered by volunteers, which is fantastic. We want to keep pushing that. We want to do even more with that, which just increases our capacity to do more and to give our supporters an even better experience. And it's just a really good use of our resources. Our volunteer pool are just fantastic. You know, we've got ex-patients. We've got one guy who's a frequent flyer. He's been a patient in our aircraft 3 times and comes and helps us out with events on the island. And, you know, getting to spend time with those people while they're out supporting this wonderful cause. It really, really touches me, if I'm honest.
That's a wonderful statistic to have around as well, the 80%. Actually really, really impressive.
Yeah, but we'll probably aim for 90, I think.
I'm not going to ask how the guy who came back 3 times as a patient ended up coming, unfortunately, needing your services 3 times, poor guy. But
he's one of our patient case studies, so I can tell you he has a condition where his pressure will build up on his brain, and if he's not treated within 2 hours, it can be and will be fatal. And so at night, his only way of getting off the island and into surgery is for us to attend and take him. So, yeah. Wow. One of the very few people who flies more than once and one of the very few people who remembers their journey. So,
yeah, indeed, absolutely. A couple of questions for you. One looking back, one looking forward. Looking back, first of all, Keith, tell me a little bit. Looking at your sort of charity career as a whole, what has been the toughest leadership lesson that you've learned along the way, or that you've had to learn along the way?
Gosh, I mean, there's something about looking after yourself, I would say, in order to be a good leader. This appeal has taken it out of me in these last few months. And I think at times I have slipped up as a leader as a result. And so, yeah, there's a lesson in that about making sure I take a step back, take a breath, and be the best I can for this wonderful team that I have the pleasure of working alongside. And I think, you know, I've made 1,000 mistakes. I make enormous mistakes every day. I think the most important thing that I know about leadership and in my approach to leadership is that mistakes are okay, learn from them fast and move on to the next success. And so we've become from a very risk averse organization, an organization now which is willing and able to take risks and learn from them and create something brilliant at the end of it. And so yeah, there's those two things there, I guess.
Fantastic. I certainly don't think you're alone in the taking on a lot and you know, forgetting to look after yourself. I think that's something that's common to pretty much everyone who works in this sector. I think everyone who works in charities ends up wearing many hats and taking on many duties and perhaps forgetting to look after themselves a bit. So I'm with you on that. Now, looking forward, this was just about the charity as a whole. It's the classic sort of interview style question. Looking ahead 5 years, where do you see, and also with bearing in mind things like the recent CAF reported to giving, which painted a pretty bleak picture of the way where the world, where the UK at the moment in terms of giving, where do you see that the air ambulance in the next 5 years? What's your thoughts and your hopes and worries for the next 5 years?
Yeah, well, my hope is that we make use of this new airbase and that we become absolutely integrated in our local community, and that pays dividends for us in the long term. I hope we keep looking at the longer term outcomes and not get sucked into looking at the next 6 months, year, 2 years. We have those regular givers that I've mentioned, and I hope we're able to continue to build our regular giving program and bring more of those people in and give them a more immersive experience of this service and what it is we do for the communities that we serve. I guess the things that worry me are that unpredictability around about legacy income. We have to be really mindful here that we don't build and build and build this service faster than we can raise the money, and we have to be mindful that we cannot infinitely grow our potential income. So we've got to cut our cloth accordingly. And so there's always a challenge in ensuring that everything moves together. But then it's very difficult to say no to a clinician who wants to do something that we know is going to be beneficial to one of our patients when they desperately need us. And so there's those challenges coming down the track for us, I'm sure. In terms of the sort of the national picture, I think where success lies for us is in doubling down on our engagement over income approach, in looking long term, in looking at sustainable income, and in working collaboratively together rather than chasing the same pound. And I think that's the best thing we can do in a more competitive and more challenging economic environment.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Just finally, if listeners wanted to get involved with the charity, wanted to volunteer, wanted to donate, wanted to just find out a little bit more about the amazing new airbase it's just open, how should they go about it?
Yeah, I mean, our social channels are, particularly this week, a brilliant way of finding out what's going on. Loads of updates from the airbase and from our launch as it approaches in a few days' time. So that's facebook.com/HIOWAA, and the same on LinkedIn, and then Instagram.com/helimed56. But the website is HIOWAA, HIOWAA.org. And everything is available there as well. And we're here with this big visitor centre and local charities and local organisations. We hope we'll be able to use this space as well. So any charities listening, local to Hampshire or the Isle of Wight, who are looking for meeting spaces or something a bit unique, we're hoping to be able to offer that up and support other smaller charities in particular, who may find it prohibitively expensive to find meeting space. So yeah, there's that too.
Just finally then, Keith. So obviously you've had a go at the sim van. You've had a go at flying helicopter in the simulator. Are you any good at it?
I am really, really good at flying a helicopter. I would not want to land a helicopter.
That's the tricky part, yeah?
Yeah, it is. So yeah, the flying bit is easy. Once you're up, it's great. Takeoff and landing is the more challenging bit, and I think we've got our settings set to fairly easy. So yeah, I don't think our pilots are going to be taking a day off and letting me take the controls anytime soon.
Dear. Awesome, Keith. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure to meet you, and it's been a fascinating conversation. So thank you so much.
You're very, very welcome. Been a pleasure.
And for our regular slot this week for the small charity spotlight, we've just got one that we want to champion. And this is one I've got a bit of skin in the game with, Tim. This is a charity, a fantastic charity that deals with childhood brain tumours. So we know this charity from my work at the brain tumour charity. It's called a Success Charity, and its key message is surviving a childhood brain tumour is not the end of the story. It goes on to say that the success exists because survival alone is not enough. More children are surviving brain tumours, but many continue to face lifelong challenges affecting health, learning, confidence, relationships, and independence. Recovery support has not kept pace with the improved survival for the estimated 40,000 children and young people living after being diagnosed with a childhood brain tumour, according to Success Charity. So they've dropped us a line. Massive shout out. As I say, our paths cross quite a bit in terms of the work that we do over at the Brain Tumour Charity as well. But just to leave that, they note that they believe children deserve more than survival. They deserve recovery, opportunity and a future they can shape for themselves. So fantastic, smaller charity there, Success Charity. We'll put all the links to the website and how to get in touch with them in the show notes. So thank you so much for dropping us a line here at the Charity Show.
And that's a wrap on episode 48. A huge thank you to Keith Wilson for joining us and sharing such an honest insight into the realities of leading income and engagement for one of the country's most vital emergency charities.
I think one of the things that stood out for me, Tim, was the idea of the sim van, the helicopter simulation van that Keith said was one of his brainwaves. And I just think, as an asset for charity, that is just a unicorn thing to have. I mean, when he was talking about how the corporates and fundraising just love the fact that this modified transit van, I'm obviously doing it a disservice there, but equipped with the latest flight simulation, gives everyone a chance to get behind the controls of a helicopter. I mean, who doesn't want to just have a little go of that? What an asset to the charity that was.
Absolutely. And you're one of those people who wants to get behind the wheel of that, or behind the whatever it is.
Definitely going to be taking a trip down to Southampton.
What do you steer a helicopter to? It's not wheel. What's it called? How do you drive it?
I think we best leave it there, really.
There you go. We'll leave it there.
Ourselves.
Anyway, yeah.
There's a couple of sticks in there, and it goes up and down and round and round.
Something like that.
Yeah. See, we know. We're there.
There we go. There we go. Anyway, listen, absolutely, it was a fantastic reminder, that interview, that behind every life-saving intervention are thousands of supporters, volunteers, fundraisers and staff making it possible.
You'll find links to Hampshire and Isle of Wight Air Ambulance and everything we've discussed today in the show notes.
And if you've enjoyed this episode, please follow the show, leave us a review and share it with a colleague or friend in the sector.
Until next time, keep doing great things.
And we'll see you on the next episode of The Charity Show.